crypto warriors, changing our world day by day. The way of the crypto warriors, can't rely on the bankers, no way.
Good morning, Bix Weir, roadrunner.com with your morning horn of Z's, your sip of chaga coffee with no camera. I don't know what's wrong with my computer. I'm having glitches. I do want to report that I have posted the discussion with Jenny Moonstone, Good Guys, new monetary system in the Road to Ruta documents. We dive into the actual Road to Ruta documents from the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston. Who did it, why they did it, what does it mean for the future, why are all these issues coming up right now? People are actually speaking of how we will implement a new monetary system, and why I believe that there will be no NESRA or GESRA or quantum financial system or any of the pre-planned systems, because the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston, which is the Federal Reserve, has been working on this issue along with the U.S. Treasury for over 100 years. Yes, there are bad guys in the Fed, but the vast majority of people who work for the Fed are actual real people. Thousands of people work for the Fed. They aren't all criminal cabal type people. There are people within the Fed working to knowing of what's about to happen and working to get the best situation where the people of the United States of America can choose what kind of monetary system they want. Part of that choice will be understanding just how much gold, how much silver there is, not only in America, but around the world. You can't value anything unless you know its scarcity and what's it in relation to. As far as the fiat monetary system, that's a click of a mouse and it's over. It ends. The way they set that up, the ability to destroy all these bankers and these criminals, was Alan Greenspan's fight to deregulate derivatives in the late 1990s. Absolutely. He knew that if you give enough rope to the bankers, you know what they're going to do with it. And they're going to literally run this. The greed of American banking and Western banking and banking in general is off the charts. You give them enough room, they're going to run and run and run until they destroy the entire thing and then come running begging for a bailout. And that's where we're going to be. And this time, nobody's going to bail out anybody. You could say that the Fed is already bailing out the banks, which they are. Over $2 trillion in reverse repos are currently on the books. Those are overnight emergency loans to banks. But this is bigger than a $2 trillion problem. The derivative problem is $2 quadrillion. And when you understand that it doesn't take much to tip that market over, and then every single one of those $2 quadrillion come into play because they are all counterparties to each other. So it doesn't take $2 trillion in deals to go bad for the derivative market to explode. It takes maybe 50 billion or 100 billion. And right now, I mean, Jamie Dimon just added, at least the numbers they show us at the OCC data, added 10 trillion to their derivative book in the first quarter. 10 trillion. And like I said, it doesn't take $2 quadrillion in deals to go bad for the derivative market to blow. It takes maybe 50 billion. And that could, it could be anything. It could be anything, literally. China shutting down their market would do it, which I'll get to in a second. But I do want to talk about, well, first of all, this is for private road members. Go check this out. Jenny did an amazing job with her dreams, and then I apply it to what's going on right now. We are going back to a gold and silver standard. There may be cryptos involved, but the United States doesn't need to deal in cryptos. That's the people's money. The United States of America doesn't even necessarily need, the government doesn't need to be in money. We have massive amounts of gold that we've been hiding. The U.S. Mint has stopped pretty much production of gold and silver eagles for the simple reason that they have to make gold and silver eagles and money for the new system. And that's coming soon. I don't know how much gold and silver we have. My connections with the U.S. Mint a long time ago, they said they were like stockpiling coins, stockpiling massive amounts of coins for this transition. Our good friend Litecoin Lisa has shown that there's new ATMs coming that deal in coins as well. And as we know, when David Ryder left the U.S. Mint last year, right before he left, he made sure that the new gold and silver eagles that were being made had a little empty space on that bottom edge for some kind of identification markings on every single coin. I don't think they've started to identify them yet, but I think they will be very soon. And yes, the U.S. Mint or the U.S. government can declare gold and silver coins. They don't even have to declare it. They just, the old system has to fail. It's already on the books, gold and silver eagles. There's been some changes to the gold and silver eagle laws. One of them, they termed gold and silver eagles as numismatic coins officially. Now, to some people that means, oh my God, yeah, they confiscate numismatics. I don't, I'm not on that camp. I don't think the numismatics should hold as much, massively more value, unless the laws are different from numismatic coins, U.S. silver eagles and gold eagles, for example. If the laws are different about that type of money versus silver rounds and gold rounds and other types of gold and silver coinage and bars, that could very well mean the difference in an ability to use. For example, let's just say, in the U.S. Federal Reserve did write this in the Road to Ruta comic books. What if the U.S. government took over the gold and silver markets in the United States? That's one of the questions on the Road to Ruta. That is definitely one of the potentials on the table. A nationalization of gold and silver. Oh, they'll pay you in fair market value. Don't you worry about that. But then after, just like they did in 1934 when they, or 33, 34, when they confiscated the gold, once they confiscated the gold, they changed the price from $20 to $35. Yeah, you got your fair market value type of thing. Especially with a renegade government like we have. Who knows what they're going to do? They could say, junk silver is illegal because it's needed. It would be very difficult to do because silver is a global market, but at all times, if we're going to a gold and silver standard, at all times, gold and silver eagles, the money of the U.S. government, must be valued higher than the melt value of the metal at all times. Otherwise, it would just be melted down and given to industry. Should there be freely traded gold and silver markets? I don't know. I don't know what the plan is, but there are lots of plans. I say, I would tend to, lean towards having, if you're going to have gold and silver as money, don't put a dollar value on it, because gold and silver will be cherished by everyone on the planet at that point in time, with the destruction of the fiat monetary system, which basically is a click of a mouse with the derivative situation. So go check out that discussion. It's on the private road under the Jenny Moonstone readings. It's really interesting stuff, and look at all the other stuff we can't talk about. But I do want to talk about an amazing article, great article from Ronan Manley, basically spelling out what this JP Morgan conviction means, the traders at JP Morgan being convicted of certain crimes, and there was a few crimes they were convicted of, and then what it means going forward, and what the light that it shines on the complacency of the CFTC, the regulator, Gary Gensler, the head of the SEC now, who was the head of the CFTC. It goes down the list of things that are just completely off the charts criminal. Not to mention Jamie Dimon and his bank have, I think it's 5 felony counts that they admitted to, and yet they admitted to rigging the gold and silver markets. They paid $920 million, but they're still the largest player by far in gold and silver. Some of the interesting things that Ronan points out is the It was a multi-year market manipulation scheme of precious metals futures contracts that spanned over 8 years, involved thousands of unlawful trading sequences. And that's what they were found guilty of. The guy, Michael Nowak, was the head, but he was also on the board of the LBMA. He is also still employed at JP Morgan as the head of gold and silver. This is the insanity of this trial is, they get the slap on the wrist. They don't talk about Gary Gensler being in charge of the investigation into silver during this entire time. I mean, if you look at the price of silver during this time, 2008 to 2016, it's right here. That is massive manipulation. The run up and the run down, and everything before and everything after. Nothing has stopped. It's just a larger scam, a larger scheme to control the monetary system. And it is agreed to by all central banks of the world, the U.S. Treasury. It's 100% legal for the United States government to rig the silver market. And that's the problem. We don't have free markets, and if you don't have free markets, you don't have freedom. That's 100%. Now, the introduction of a silver bear market is when the price of silver was allowed to rise. After JP Morgan took over the Bear Stearns silver short position, they slammed the price down, and then they're like worried because it was running up into 2011. Jamie Dimon was like, what are we going to do? They devised a scheme, but they had to go to the President of the United States to get it done. What they did is, this guy right here, Bill Daley, was the head of Jamie Dimon's SWAT team. Now, Jamie Dimon, the head of JP Morgan, had a SWAT team, which he calls in all these specialists, quote unquote specialists, whenever there's a problem at JP Morgan. And obviously, silver was becoming a gigantic problem. So they called the head of the SWAT team, this guy named Bill Daley of the Chicago crime family, obviously, the Daley family. And he put him as Barack Obama's chief of staff right here, right in January of 2011, right in here when they were losing control of the price of silver. It was about $25. And for 1 month, after he got in, they allowed the price of silver to run to $50, and then they artificially slammed it down, creating an artificial bear market that we're pretty much still in today. It was amazing what you can do with computers and derivatives, and they did it. As a matter of fact, in 2011, I wrote this report, JP Morgan Operation Silver Slam. It was a couple months after I saw what they were doing. I was like, oh my God, it's so obvious. Bill Daley is the JP Morgan guy put next to Barack Obama. It's all about silver. And I walked through how they did the same thing to natural gas in 2005. And I walked everybody through that. And then I went on to, there's the head of the SWAT team, Bill Daley, right there. These are all the JP Morgan, Jamie Dimon guys. I got this from a money.cnn.com article. Jamie Dimon's SWAT team, it was called, out of Money magazine. Unbelievable. I don't think you can find that magazine anymore. But so that's exactly what they did at the beginning of, as soon as he got into office in January, they let it run up to $50. Literally, it was like on a computer program. Of course it was. Everybody's getting cited. All the weak hands get in between 40 and 50. Jamie Dimon was closing out their position during this whole time, and then between $40 and $50, they started shorting into the rise, short, and then they slammed it down, thus creating the artificial bear market that we are in today in silver. And I outlined this. I sent it to the CFTC. Gary Gensler had an ongoing investigation into this, but they couldn't find anything. That was the other thing. The regulators are claiming victory on this, but they couldn't find anything. It was just ridiculous. And then that started the bear market, which we're in right now, controlled with computers and derivatives. Another interesting thing that Ronan points out in this article is that the judge in this trial announced to the jury that they are not allowed to, on the count of conspiracy, they're pretty much not allowed to even talk about it. And I couldn't believe it, but listen to what Honorable Judge Edmund Chang said. And let's see, it's right down here. The conspiracy charges. It was so obvious, a conspiracy charge for racketeering is 2 or more people colluding to commit a crime, obviously. But here's what the judge said. Typical racketeering enterprise. As to why the federal jury didn't find Nowak and Smith and Rufio guilty on counts of the RICO conspiracy and the 371 conspiracy, that is something that only the jury knows. Maybe the jury could not grasp what exactly a racketeering enterprise is as defined, and the court didn't explain it. This may sound like a joke, but on the 27th of July, 2022, just before the jury deliberations began, the judge told the jury this, and this is a quote: "On closing arguments, the court sets the following directives based on certain incidents at trial so far. No evidence has been introduced on what a typical racketeering enterprise is like, nor would it likely have been allowed, so there can be no argument on that topic." Basically, they said, you cannot try them for racketeering. Why would they do that? Why would the judge say that? Because that would mean it's a bigger conspiracy, and we all know that, than what is being dealt with here with these couple guys. They wanted the one-off. This is proof positive the judge was in on it. I would say even the jurors were in on it. The scam of all scams. Why, and then Roden goes on, why exactly evidence on what a typical racketeering enterprise looks like would, quote, would likely have not been allowed, will have to be left to the U.S. federal court experts to interpret. This is such a con job. And of course, Gary Gensler was knee-deep in it. David Meister, okay, so David Meister was the head of enforcement. He was the guy during this time. His job was to sit on JP Morgan's desk and look for market manipulation because they were under investigation during this entire time. And David Meister was the guy. He was the head of enforcement. He was the guy who let JP Morgan off. And then he turns into JP Morgan's lawyer, the JP Morgan trader's lawyer. And here's interesting. The CFTC's market investigation ran from 2008 to 2013 and was only one of 3 investigations into silver market manipulation the CFTC held starting in 2004. And 3 times, starting in 2004, the CFTC looked into allegations of market manipulation of the silver market by JP Morgan. The CFTC closed the 3rd of the 3 inquiries in 2013 without taking action. That was a 5-year investigation. They waited for there's a time clock of 5 years, and they waited for that to expire, and they said, oh, we can't do anything. They found nothing. And then we have this. Chambers Review, Securities Regulation Enforcement Nationwide, Man 3. David Meister is particularly highlighted for his lead practice in CFTC enforcement actions and investigation. He also regularly acts on FINRA and SEC actions, representing lead public companies, investment banks, and broker-dealers. Quote, David is killing it. People call him the Gensler Whisperer. He is a real tactician who sees the chessboard 3 moves ahead. Oh my God. David Meister is the right-hand man of Gary Gensler, who is put as he was the head of the CFTC at the time. Bart Chilton said they found JP Morgan rigging the market, but they couldn't do anything because it was a political decision. That was the Chris Marcus interview of Bart Chilton right before he left this planet. There is David Meister. So if you don't know that the government is in on it, then I don't know what to say. The spot part, but we get to a bigger issue with this all, and that is that the COMEX is a futures and options trading platform. There is no physical trading exchange on the planet Earth. Physical silver trading exchange on planet Earth. No, the LBMA it's an association. It's not an exchange. You're not allowed to go in and trade on it. Now the COMEX you're allowed to, but nobody does. I mean, it is literally filled with the bankers and the massive bullion dealers. I mean, unless you have you're buying massive amounts of silver, like Andy Schechtman. He will hedge his position. He's one of the biggest retailers out there. He will hedge his position on the COMEX. Those are legitimate. He's doing it for a reason. And the volumes that you see, 300 million ounces per day that trade, are basically banks trading back and forth to and from each other, hiding gains and losses, all orchestrated by a company called Virtu Financial beneath the covers. And it is a con game. We will never see the price of silver over $50 until the COMEX shuts down. And what's wrong with shutting down a derivative market? Derivative markets, their only intention, the only reason they are allowed is to rig this crazy financial system that we are part of. That's why they're putting all these derivative markets into cryptos. You can't have a standalone asset. I mean, if we are going back to a gold and silver standard, there can be no derivative markets. Zero. I'm sorry, it cannot happen. And I think that's where we're headed. So the Crimex will be shut down, which should be good. When do I expect it? I expect the insanity to start in September. That is not far away, a month away. I like that. I mean, if someone's going to shoot the gun and say, okay, here we go, I would say it's on September 11th, the Sunday, September 11th. So chaos either Friday or Monday in the markets, chaos all throughout the rest of the year, definitely. But I don't know how fast this will go. It'll be ugly, though. I'll guarantee you that. All right. Moving on quickly, a note on streaming viewership tops cable for the first time. Everybody and their mother is streaming videos now. Again, it is so expensive. The vast majority, Netflix just raised their prices. Amazon's raising their prices. This is a screaming need for none other than Theta. Theta is a download. It is a software download that you can download the Edge, Theta Edge node, and share your broadband with everybody. It is cheaper for Netflix. It is cheaper for Amazon. It's cheaper for everybody. And oh, by the way, as a participant for sharing your broadband, you get paid in Theta Fuel. So why don't we get some of these large cable companies, and I'm sure we will, as they lose their viewership, and it's all going to streaming. It's all going to be, I believe, at some point, Samsung and Sony and some of these big guys will download the Theta Edge node on every single device that they have out there, so that everybody is sharing their broadband. It solves this massive problem. Now, San Francisco is the hub of broadband, high tech, you name it. It is the hub. And even San Francisco can't keep up with the amount of information that is being transferred through broadband. They're trying to put in all these wires under the city. It's not enough. They don't have it. They can't cover everybody with high-speed internet. And the reason they can't do that is it's a physical, they're trying to fix a software problem with physical cables. And it's just not going to be able to be done. It's so easy to download to everybody who has a computer the Edge node and have them share their broadband instead of laying all this cable, and there's just not the money for it. Even in San Francisco, and now imagine everywhere else in the world. One of the biggest things that the remote viewing people saw, both Hitomi and Dick Allgaier, they said Theta is going to be massive in Africa because they don't have to put in any of the infrastructure. They could just put in they can download Theta Edge nodes all over Africa and not worry about not any of it, but there's massive amounts of ability to expand broadband, high-speed internet to everybody on the planet with this software download. And I think San Francisco is looking at they needed $2 billion, or 2.5 was the estimate 2.5 billion. This was like in 2017. So now it's probably $5 billion to put in high-speed internet for everyone. They can't do it. $5 billion just for one city, and you could use something like Theta, which would alleviate much of the problem. If everybody had a Theta edge node, everybody was sharing their broadband. And look at the market cap of Theta, 1.2 billion. So just San Francisco alone, with their $5 billion problem, could solve it with Theta, or at least it wouldn't solve it, but it would much improve the broadband capacity and greatly improve the cost structure of, people have to pay $1 zillion. These internet companies are charging massive amounts of money if you want broadband brought to your house. And don't forget about social justice in San Francisco. If everybody's going to be online learning, everybody has to have equal access. That's part of the fundamental argument of the left, and I agree with that. I agree with it. The question is, how do you do it? Do you pay, billions of dollars, trillions of dollars worldwide to expand your broadband, or do you, how about a software download to greatly increase the access to everybody? That's why I think we're heading. Get your absolutely number one. Get your Theta as soon as you can. You can get it on Binance at rotorua.com. We have a page on how to buy, store, and stake Theta. Again, more info on the internet. Massive. It has grown massively. The world population is over 8 billion now, and the amount of people, the largest country with the most fixed broadband subscriptions is China, 307. That's because they have the most people, obviously. But the United States has over 100 million fixed broadband subscriptions, and mobile is huge and gigantic. But look at how much still needs to be done. Of the world population, this is 2019, out of 7.75 billion, only 14% of the planet has access to fixed broadband. That's not much. And can you imagine if everybody on the planet, all 7.75 billion people, were able to access high-speed internet? That's what Theta offers. That's why I think it's going to be so gigantic in the future. It's a software download, and it can happen like that, instantly. Samsung, Apple, all the hardware manufacturers can say, okay, we're going to download this thing called Theta because we're running out of broadband capacity, and all of a sudden, everybody on the planet will be able to participate in the Theta network. And oh, by the way, did I tell you there's all kinds of other things that it does, including the metaverse, and you name it, Theta is positioning itself to do it. Even the sub change is what I'm looking at. That's coming. That's coming in October 1st. It's supposed to be the beta, and then December 1st will be the new blockchain, so that companies like Netflix can create their own blockchain on the Theta network. And that's a big thing. They want to be all these gigantic companies and corporations want to be in charge of their own blockchain, and Theta can do that for them amazingly. And it's got the digital rights. It's got so many bells and whistles. I believe it will be the number one crypto, bigger than Bitcoin as far as market cap. That's how big it is. And I hope everybody can see it. And at $1.22, it is a gift. It is a gift from the heavens, from the crypto gods to you at $1.22. It is going into the thousands, so just plan accordingly. And let's not forget Evergrande. It can be a trigger point for the derivative mess, and the regulator just widened the probe into Evergrande accounting. So there's no, all the Wall Street people are saying, oh, no, the government of China will bail them out. No, that's not the idea. Evergrande will be the trigger for the $2 trillion derivative collapse, I think, coming in September. So keep an eye on that as well. To join the Road to Ruta, go to roadtoruta.com. Hit subscribe today, and we'll send you the coolest coin ever made, the Ruta Lives coin. It comes in it's double struck, with each is individually numbered, hand painted in this really cool blue box with the certificate of authenticity. We did this one right. Make sure you join and subscribe before these coins are no longer given out at $30 silver when the chaos starts. I don't think we're going to give these coins out after September, because I think that's when the chaos is going to hit, and we won't be giving out silver Ruta coins. And then those who have it have that collector's ability to say, oh, I got number 542 or whatever number you got. Anyway, go check it out. That gets you access to everything, including the Moonstone readings and the data information. This is Bix Weir, roadtoruta.com. I'll talk to you later.